increased mood, increased calmness. It's part of how it functions is that it's shown to elevate GABA, which GABA is essentially, it reduces neurological, like excitability is the term that they use. So essentially it can help to prevent anxiety, right? And so I'm not a doctor. I'm referencing studies that you can review, but there's just a lot of, it's been around for a long time. It's been used for hundreds of years. And there's a lot of studies from multiple different institutes across the globe showing its positive effects. And so it felt like a very natural addition to a non-alcoholic beer to bring you some of that lighter positive aspect that you enjoy from alcohol without the hangover, the calories, all of the other detrimental things.
That's amazing. How did you think to put this with a non-alcoholic beer?
Yeah, so I was researching what was in the different functional beverages at first. I thought, well, let me see what other beverages are using, and then went back to my personal health and wellness journey. I've leveraged a lot of different supplements throughout my life. I've researched different like neurological supplements. Qualia is a big one that is supposed to help improve memory and function, and it's common kind of in like the startup business space, at least in my perception it is. And so I was really pulling on my personal health journey, what other functional beverages were doing, but then also what tastes good in beer, right? Because there are some things that probably could have a positive effect, but it still has to taste like a delicious, amazing beer. And so, so it's what can play well with that flavor and is something you can enjoy, because a big part of a non-alcoholic beer is enjoying that experience. You could go and you can buy like a vitamin shot, right? And you can swig that down and make a face and be like, well, that was gross, but it was good for me. But that's not really the goal here.
Well, that's good because, yeah, there are so many times that, you know, you will go to a vitamin shop or just, you know, get vitamins from the grocery store if you've done your research. And, yeah, you take a handful and they do not taste good going down, and they can be just a little much for especially people who aren't used to taking, you know, supplements or vitamins. And, you know, when you're first getting into the healthy lifestyle, a lot of that stuff does not taste good at first. Obviously, it's an acquired taste.
Right.
And once you start feeling the benefits, then you're like, okay, I can obviously get past this because, you know, it makes me feel so much better. And like, let's say you're enjoying matcha. At first, matcha does not taste very good. And so you've got to really kind of figure out, you know, if you're going to put anything with matcha or the best way to drink it, because as much as you might enjoy the focus that you get and a little bit of energy, natural energy you get, it does not taste good at very first. So it's an acquired taste. But I'm glad that you found a way to not only have something for people to enjoy taste-wise, but, you know, while they're out with friends, they're actually getting, you know, the functionality aspect to their body while enjoying a non-alcoholic beer with friends or family.
Yeah, absolutely. Because for it to have some true efficacy, you have to put a material amount into that beverage too. Because I think what I see in some other beverages is they have a vat of, you know, 100 barrels of whatever they're making. They sprinkle a pinch of X or Y over it, and now they can legally say it's got those things.
Right.
But that is not the purpose too, right? So it can't just be on the label. There has to be a material amount of a really high quality version of that thing to have it actually have the positive effect. And so, yeah, I think that there's a lot to factor when you're looking at putting something such as lemon balm into a non-alcoholic beverage where people want it to still have that familiar taste. Because once you leave that realm, now you're making something else. Now you're making, maybe call it a canned cocktail, or you're leaving the realm of the non-alcoholic beer and you're starting to create a completely different beverage, which I want people to be able to open up a can of Upline Brewing and enjoy it exactly as they would a traditional beer.
Right. Yeah. Now, entering the non-alcoholic category, like you said, coming from the wine world and the organic wine like you did, with it growing as much as we did, or as it has, and we kind of talked about it, what have you noticed is the biggest thing that's helped the category grow the way it is?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are a lot of factors to that, and I've had discussions with others in the space, and it's funny, even some of the people that have been in this space for many years with their own brands or businesses, bottle shops, at the end of the day, I get a lot of versions of like, here's all the things we think are happening, but it's really kind of like an amalgamation of many things. I don't know that there's one factor. We could point to everything from the marketing dollars of Athletic Brewing and the product development that they've done to actually make great beers, but it's much more than that. I think we're really at a higher level experiencing really a permanent change in drinking patterns in the same way we experience a permanent change in cigarette smoking habits. I think what we see is in the younger generation, they're much more aware of the detrimental impact of alcohol, and they're changing their choices accordingly. And some of the later generations are doing the same. It's like thinking back to when I had those warm Labatt Blue Lights in my friend's backyard. It feels ridiculous to say now, but at that time, I really did not think that alcohol had any negative effect other than the calories. It was like, maybe I'll get a hangover, and if I drink too much, I'll get a beer belly. But that was the end of it. And that's probably what an earlier generation thought of smoking, right? They're like, maybe I'll get bad breath or something whenever I smoke this cigarette, but that's it. I really didn't realize that it could, cancers, it could lessen your brain matter, right? It can do so many negative things. But there was no education in my generation, not that I experienced or my peers experienced, but I've had this conversation with others. And it feels ridiculous even such a short time later to look back and think that we didn't have that education, but there was no talk of the long-term detrimental impact of alcohol. It was just, again, like, you might get a beer belly, you might get hungover, but if you hit the gym and get past your hangover, then that's it.
Right.
And so there's definitely better education now. And so, yeah, I think in light of that, we're seeing a significant and permanent shift in the drinking habits of people in the U.S. And the U.S. is lagging far behind many other developed countries. The U.S. is only about 0.5% of their alcohol sales are non-alcoholic. And the U.K. is 6 times that. They're at a full 3%. Australia, Spain, there's a few others, I think Germany. So it's interesting also because the U.S. typically, when it comes to emerging health trends, is at the forefront of that. If you think about something like paleo and other popular health movements, they really started in the U.S. and were far outpacing the availability of certain products related to them more than almost any other country. So when it comes to health and wellness, typically the U.S. is ahead on these things, but interestingly, in this case, we're far behind.
It is funny watching how much, America is behind on so many things, and the non-alcoholic world does not surprise me either because, as much as, look at, the biggest thing watched yearly is always the Super Bowl. And the Super Bowl is always consumed by, what's Budweiser going to do with their commercial? Or what is, any other, this year I think there was that quote-unquote commercial with the fight, it wasn't an actual commercial, but it was the quote-unquote fight with like Coors Light, Miller Lite, and I think Michelob or whatever was the other one. And it's like, no, I think Heineken maybe had one non-alcoholic beer commercial, but it was still, it was still, you could also drink regular Heineken too. And it's like, okay, that's fine. But that's a step forward, but at the same time, it's just showcasing that the emphasis is on buying, the old staple beers that have been around forever and their history is so deep. And, you could have bought a Coors Light from 1984 tastes the exact same as it does in 2024. So, nothing's changed. Everything's the exact same. And, the emphasis on being healthy and good mental health, is tied with alcohol, depending on how much obviously you drink and whatever. But, that is still lacking when it does come to America, because of the fact that, there's so many things that contribute to your mental health and your physical health that,
right.
that it's not brought up on a regular basis. And alcohol is obviously one of those things. And then, social media is another one, but that's for another conversation another time. But I'm not surprised that the non-alcoholic world is still not as big here in America than it is worldwide.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch play out. I think that we are going to catch up, and likely ultimately surpass some of these other countries I mentioned, just based on past experience here with health trends. But yeah, like White Claw, they just came out with White Claw Zero. I don't know if you saw this a couple days ago. White Claw came out with zero alcohol White Claw, which I think is interesting. But this is really, that's consumer driven. I don't think that a lot of these larger, more established companies are so excited about non-alcoholic so much as they don't want to miss the boat on it. And so I think what we've seen is that a lot of these larger companies, or even local breweries, they say, people keep asking for non-alcoholic. We don't want to do it, but people keep asking, so fine. So they kind of half-heartedly make something that tastes like crap, and they put it out there. Somebody tries it, and they're like, I knew non-alcoholic tasted like crap, and then they never try it again. So there is some. I think there's a lot of that happening right now, especially at the local level. A lot of breweries and other local businesses saying, people keep asking for NA, so we're going to make something somewhat begrudgingly because we don't want to miss out on that. But then they're not putting their heart into it.
Right. Well, I mean, it's the same way that, you brought up White Claw, which is funny because the seltzer craze, they thought that was a passing fad. And obviously it's not, because you've got people like Topo Chico. You've got Simply, Lemonade came out with their own. Bud Light obviously had to jump on the train because they saw the way it was. Corona, same way. Like they didn't, like you were mentioning, they didn't want to miss the boat. They didn't want to miss that money that was coming in for those seltzers. And even, you had local breweries do the same thing because they saw, oh crap, people are loving seltzers and people buying the crap out of seltzers. And also it's a good alternative for people that go to breweries and they don't drink beer. So in certain cities and states, you can have beer, but you can't sell somebody else's cider, or you can't also make cider, which is another alternative for people who don't drink beers. And then sometimes they can have wine and sometimes they can't. So the alternative of that, didn't want to be lost with some of the breweries as well. But like you said, unfortunately, when it does come to the non-alcoholic, it's still so new to them. They're just kind of throwing something out there and, not really putting the love into it they would with any other beer that they make.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes me think of, have you ever ordered a salad at a pizzeria? It's kind of like that, where it's like they technically have lettuce and they will put it into a plastic clamshell container and give it to you, but they're not happy about it. And that's what a lot of the NA I've had, especially at the smaller scale, is like.
Yeah, a salad at a pizzeria is hilarious because it's a little bit of iceberg lettuce, maybe a tomato or two, and some cheese on top, and here's some ranch, and good luck.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, we're excited to bring something that's really high quality ingredients. We've put a lot of time into. It's taken about a year to get to market, and that year was full court press every day. So that's, I think it's easy, myself included, to be kind of an armchair founder. And I think, that took 2 years. I could do that in 2 months. And then you get into it and you're like, yeah, it took a lot of time, a lot of iterations, a lot of proverbial pins